Yo, yo, yo. Hey, guys, welcome back to the Best Practices Show podcast. My name is Kirk Behrendt, where I am going to keep bringing it. Great stories from incredible human beings in this awesome profession of dentistry. And today we do just that with Dr. Kelley Brummett. She is a rock star in dentistry. If you don't know her, you need to get to know her. And I've had many conversations with her. And today we talk about the recovering perfectionist. It is awesome. You have to listen to this. So listen up, apply it, and enjoy the journey. We'll see you soon. Hey guys, welcome back to the Best Practices Show podcast. You know what's so fun is I get to interview brilliant people in this great profession of dentistry, and I get to ask them questions and they share their insight. So you, as the listener, can benefit and create a better practice and a better life. And today I have an amazing, brilliant woman. Her name is Dr. Kelley Brummett, and we've done a couple podcasts with her, and she introduced an idea last time that I'm like, oh my gosh, we got to talk about that. And it's the tale of the recovering perfectionist. Now, you're going to want to listen to this, but hold on tight. I want you to meet Kelley before we actually discuss that topic. So Kelley, thanks for being on. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Awesome. I always like our listeners to know who they're listening to. So give us a little bio. Who's Dr. Kelley Brummett?
Well, I'm a person. So I have a family. I have a son and a daughter. They're in college, so we're empty nesters. My husband's a physician. I have a practice in Duluth, Georgia. Been practicing for about 20 years now. Before I was a dentist, I was a nurse, so I had a little bit of a different background coming in. And I run a private practice in Duluth. I bought the practice from Dr. Clayton Davis, who is an awesome dentist. Been practicing for 35 plus years, this practice. Before that, I did have a practice in Noonan, Georgia, that I ran for 18 years. But yeah, now I'm a big city girl in Atlanta and living. This is my second year owning this practice. So we're celebrating that. And I teach at the Pankey Institute. I'm on the board of directors, and I'm just passionate about learning. I'm kind of a learning junkie, as well as always trying to grow, change, be different today than yesterday, and hoping to be a part of impacting dentistry.
Yeah, you are definitely doing that. Now, you're extra qualified. Let me speak for you because you're a pretty humble person to talk on this subject. Not only are you heavily involved with the Pankey Institute and changing people's lives, but the board of directors, and you purchased the practice from one of my favorite dentists, who's probably one of the best dentists I've ever met. Like, I don't know if I would have done that because I felt like I would feel like extra level of, expectation on myself. And you know me well enough, Kelley. I'm not a smart guy. And I was telling you before we went live, oh, this is a great topic, recovering perfectionists. And I've never been a perfectionist. I'm an aspiring perfectionist. And you're like, I don't know if that's a good idea. But I just think you're hugely qualified to talk about this important subject. And let's talk about the why. Let's talk about the word perfectionist. What does that mean? And as you watch the evolution of so many dentists, why is that important to their journey?
Well, I guess let me tell you a story of why this kind of came into fruition. One day I was driving home from work early in my practice, and I had a patient that had a previous 5-unit bridge, and it was failing. And so I went in to replace it. Well, learned that oftentimes what worked before isn't always going to work the second go around. And I just took it really hard as if I had done something wrong, because she ended up needing one of the teeth extracted. She needed an implant. And so it was just different for her from what she had, and just kind of disappointing. And I was beating myself up, and I was driving home, and I remember I looked in the rearview mirror and I was like, why am I doing this? Like, I didn't make her have the cavity. She had the bridge for a really long time. And it wasn't really that the cavity, it was the compromise of the structure of the tooth. Like, it was a root canal tooth. It was a premolar in the midst of a 5-unit bridge. And so I remember one of the significant stories in Dr. Pankey's book on philosophy of dentistry that Bill Davis wrote. And the story was about, he was learning about the Munson articulator, and he was learning about occlusion. And he had 5 cases that he put on this articulator, and he adjusted all the occlusion. And then he took it to the patient's mouths, all 5 of these people, and he obliterated all of their occlusion. And he said, like, they were just like the flattest teeth he'd ever seen. And he said he was kind of like, oh no. And he explained it to the patients. 4 of the 5 patients stayed with him. 1 decided to leave, and because they felt like he was conscientious enough that he was going to help them and make things better. And he said while he was trying to figure this out, he went back to what he knew, which was bread and butter dentistry, drill and fill, while he kept learning about how to make people's occlusion better, because, his whole goal was to save teeth.
Right.
And it resonated with me, because it was like, okay, it's not a failure. And that's what we tend to do to ourselves. We say, oh, this dentistry is going to fail, or this dentistry did fail, or we criticize, or we judge, or whatever it is. And it's like, no, everything has an expiration date. And it's totally dependent on the variables that patient hosts. And we get to play a part in our skills and our patient, understanding our patient from the health standpoint to even the temperament standpoint. And so I just looked in the mirror and was like, I've got to quit beating myself up about this. I'm too early in my career.
Yeah.
And those stories resonated, because it's like, thank God he shared that story for me, because it helped me with realizing, okay, all of my dentistry, as Dr. Lee Brady taught me, will fail. I will not go to my grave. I might get lucky. There might be a case or 2. But that's not really the goal. The goal of dentistry in my mind is to make people feel better, to make people healthier, to make people function better.
Right.
So it was like, okay, I need a mindset shift. And that's always been my focus, because the perfectionist quality, I think this goes to the second part of your question of the why, that came about from my years as a springboard diver, because there was a perfectionist piece to competing at that level. I had a full ride scholarship in college. You could get a 10, which is the highest, score you can get. There's not a lot of satisfaction, because once you do something well, you want to do it better. Once you do something good, you want to do it well. So that tape that tells you how old I am, that ran through my brain and did affect me in very negative ways sometimes. But I found that creeping in. I found it creeping in dental school. I found it creeping in, even in daily practice. So I think it's a common challenge. I don't want to use the word problem, but it's a common challenge that is not commonly talked about.
Yeah.
And I think that's true in any. My husband's a physician. Now, I'll be honest, there's a lot of times that I'll hear him tell me stories of things that go south, surgeon stories. He's a radiologist, so sometimes he's in on the planning stages. And you do have to have a a confidence about you, but there's also this piece that you don't want to totally focus on it and dwell on it. It's like, okay, what can we learn? What can we gain? And what can we take forward for the next person, or even that person that we can help continue to get better?
Yeah. There's so many. You're just opening up Pandora's box of questions that I have, because this is such an important topic. There's a downside to CE. Wouldn't you agree? Like, you get to see some beautiful stuff. And,
Totally.
And you come back and you have this feeling in your stomach. You're like, well, my practice isn't that. Would you agree? And you have to coach yourself in that process. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. And I think you hit on the word coach. I think that's kind of my focus whenever I'm even talking from a management standpoint to my employees, to the patient base, and that's my experience. I like coaching because there's this constant work that we're doing. Mm-hmm. So what you oftentimes have to sit, and at least I have to tell myself when I'm looking at a lecture that has some amazing work, maybe even complex things that I'm thinking I might not even attempt, or maybe I don't feel like I have the skills to do that. The idea is to say, okay, what can I learn from that though? Was it a skill? Was it a technique? Was it a material? Was it a communication piece that with a patient, of even being able to gain the trust of that patient to do the treatment? Because that's a lot of it, is that trust and skill. So I think putting your learning hat on and being open and trying to sit in the space of non-judgment of yourself while you look out.
Yeah, that's so true. I have a story to share with you too. Somebody you know very well, you and I both know, Dr. Mike Fling, and our journey in the Pankey Institute. He took me to Bill Lockard's house. I'd never met Bill Lockard, and I got to know him through Mike. And Bill said one of the most amazing things, and I want you to speak on this. He said, Kirk, perfection is actually deadly. It's not really attainable. My career, my whole goal was excellence. Perfection was God's job. There were days it was perfect. It wasn't my doing. I was just committed to doing the best I could, trying to create a predictable outcome, trying to be excellent. Perfection isn't attainable. Would you agree?
Yes, 100%. 100%. And I think it's an awesome conversation to have with your team and your patients. That same conversation, not just with other dentists, but because oftentimes we are viewed from that standpoint with the knowledge, the authority, or something. But I think the tricky piece of that though is excellence is a synonym, if you look in the thesaurus, to perfection.
Okay, explain that. You have to explain that. That's really good. What does that mean?
Well, I have said it myself several times. I came up with a little acronym that I'll share with you later about perfect. That's my reminder. But I mean, it's kind of like, okay, if I say excellence is really important to me, but yet I'm really hard on myself, and that excellence becomes just a cover up for the perfection that I'm really still trying to manage. And I can lose my focus on what I'm doing. Right. And I think, like what you said, it's somewhat addictive. I mean, there's a piece of the brain, amygdala, where a lot of our addictions come from, our sensory, our emotions. And it's oftentimes that perfect, like you do a case and it is beautiful, regardless of how difficult it might have been. I mean, that's like a little dopamine. And it's like, okay, who else? What's next? And sometimes you can lose sight because, again, it's like those principles, like striving for versus demanding.
Right. It's funny you say that. Now your journey in college was different. I was on a college football team, but we won't even use the word play. So I was on a team. You actually competed at the highest level. And it's funny that you say that. You read all these stories about these elite distance runners, and they talk about that. And then when they become normal citizens, it's very hard for them to cope because they were in that zone. Can you just describe that or add some context to that?
Yeah, I think it's just recognizing that, it is a performance every day as a dentist. So like any athlete that moves into a business world or whatever, profession past their athletic journey is, you have a lot of great skills that you learn. You've developed values, because that's probably the biggest thank you I can give to my athletic career, is that the values that it helped me develop, those are the things that you can keep pulling forward. But it's a matter of, I guess, trying to fulfill that immediate, gratification or response that, like what you're talking about with that runner. If he doesn't get that high, if he's in the business world, that he got in those long runs, or that euphoria, or that, it's just that internal, that's the motivation piece.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't know that I'm answering it or explaining it very well, so I apologize. But
I just love the conversation. Like I said, the fun thing about podcasts is it's just two people having coffee talking about something that matters. I do want to ask you this, because we have so many young listeners. We have a lot of dental students listening. So let's say I'm a new dentist. I'm fresh out of school and I'm really enjoying the CE journey. Coach me through you've been through this, Kelley. What would you tell me if I'm 32 and I'm listening?
Okay, if you're talking about the CE journey, well, one, I'm going to tell you that your dental education, I'm going to expect was excellent, and it equipped you with a lot of skills. But the whole idea is that in a finite amount of time, they're developing to become a practicing dentist. And from there, you get the chance to grow your skills. And those skills are now going to encompass maybe practice ownership, maybe being an associate within a practice, whether that's small or large. So the idea is to say, as you're defining yourself in dental school, like your skills and what you enjoyed doing, what you didn't like doing, what you said you would never pick up when you walked out of school, like continue to refine that. So finding CE courses that seem to speak to you, that seem to give you energy. As Rich Green taught me, if you can dial in and answer for yourself one thing that gives you energy, or two things, and remember that and bring that forwards, that can guide your CE for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And know that when you learn, it's just gaining info. I always teach the participants down at the Institute, when we're giving them new info, you feel like, oh my God, there's just so much. It's bombarding you. And it's at you. But the whole idea is to take what you know, because what you know is good. It's not wrong. It's not right. It is information you have that you've been using, and then take new information, or maybe information you've heard before, but you haven't quite figured out how to put it in. And literally, I'm using my hands, but literally bring it beside your existing knowledge and decide what pieces you can either incorporate, maybe pieces that you want to save for later, maybe a piece that you like, okay, I'm ready to layer that baby on. And that's what CE is about for me. It's about helping you gain information to actually take into your practice and start trying.
Right.
Because it's the practicing piece before you even know what's going to work in your own hands, the patient you're working with, and trusting the fact that you need to practice.
Yeah.
I had that conversation when I spoke at the Washington dental meeting in January. No, January. What month is this? In November. I saw you as I walked by. You were up there on your stage. But the idea was, when do we ever get to practice
Right.
as dentists? This is real time. We don't normally sit in our labs and practice cutting teeth or filling composite class twos or any of that. And so the reality is, take what you have in your brain, put it into your hands, execute, make mistakes, grow from them, and realize that the mistakes aren't necessarily detrimental. They're just,
Yeah.
okay, the way I did that procedure, I can maybe improve on that next time. And involve your team.
Yeah.
Because I said earlier, this isn't a common problem, this perfectionist conversation that a lot of people are willing to talk about. But it's something that our team needs us to talk about with them.
Yeah. Yeah, this is so good. This is such good information, Kelley, and it's what you said is just brilliant. My coach reminds me all the time, you're working with humans.
Yes.
Like, you're working with humans. Like, they're not capable of doing everything all the time at the highest level. Can you talk about, I think what you just gave the listeners is brilliant advice. If they don't follow that, let's talk about that path. Because we've seen it so many times where people don't get out of the gap. They live in this, I'm striving. And I don't have a phrase for this, but perpetually miserable is kind of two of the words that come. And it might not be ever present on their face, but you can feel it in their belly. Do you know what I mean when you're talking to them, right? Would you agree with that?
Yes, 100%. I have experienced that in others and myself at times. And I think the idea is, if you can recognize that, I find part of a perfectionist healing process is that I can procrastinate. And that procrastination can be my lack of trust or faith in myself or in something, and I'll get to it. That is a sign for me that, okay, step back, Kelley. What's going on? What am I trying to avoid? And that's not true for everybody, but that can be somewhere that shows up. So the procrastination piece sometimes gets revealed by being busy. So the busier you are, the less ability for me, I got to speak for myself, but to give maybe anything to consider for other people is, the more busy that I am, the less I feel like I can focus and be present and to execute and to learn. Because every time I'm doing a restoration or having a conversation with a patient, there's something I can always walk out of that room and learn from.
Yeah.
And that's the gift of what we have, of being able to grow.
I love it. I want you, before we hit the go button, you mentioned something just perfect. You said we probably shouldn't call it recovering perfectionist. We should call it something else. Can you share what you said?
Yeah. So for years, now I'm vulnerability moment. With my history, I have spent many years in therapy. That is something that has been beneficial to me, to be able to talk out the things that you feel. I'm a big believer in, your emotions are there, but it's your thinking that drives your behavior, and your behavior drives your results. And when I'm willing to go there, I can oftentimes find more peace and not have that striving, kind of pop up. So the idea is, I used to say I'm a recovering perfectionist, because the reality is I was, and I am still. However, the idea is, to recover means to return to. So oftentimes when I realize I might be stepping off the path, I don't want to return back to all my beginning. And that's the beauty, is we're not going back to where we started. We're going back to where we recognize that maybe our resilience has dipped. And that is now called a healing perfectionist path. Because I am healing every day. I'm healing, and it's just remembering that it's it can be admirable for young dentists, striving. The idea is strive. Don't get stuck in the trap, like you said, that gap of having information, and maybe you do execute and things don't always go, but that's the beauty of what we get to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Poke holes in this. I've told people this for years, and I'm okay being wrong. So what I've said is I'm not nearly as smart as you. I like trade one P word out for the other P word. Trade perfection for progress. Like, I think if you're making progress every single month, you're learning and you're using it. Like you said, like, is there truth in that? Trading perfection for progress.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's the key word right there. And again, that can become this cliche thing that, it's just like excellence.
Right.
I mean, it can be, but the idea is that, it's that thinking. The more you say it, the more you think it, the more you believe it, the more it'll keep coming about. Because honestly, I hope to goodness that I am making progress, because I don't want to be practicing like I was when I graduated from dental school. And that's what took me down to the Pankey Institute, was sitting there saying, okay, I hated dental school, but I gained a good education. Now what? Do I just keep practicing like this? What does that look like? And that's what the progress is. And so the encouragement is, find the people that allow you to be who you are while you're discovering who you are. That's one.
Yeah.
And then two, get around education that allows you to grow, not put you in a box that if you don't do step 1 to step 10 the way that they told you to do it, then you're wrong. The idea is to figure out the pieces of the puzzle. Input is top 5 on my strengths finder. I love info. I love input. I tell me all about it. Show me, do things. I'll figure out a different way probably for me to do it. But that's okay, because you are the driver. You're the owner of that. It's just like our patients when we tell them to brush your teeth twice a day. It's like, well, how do we do that? So that's my encouragement, is trying not to allow yourself a great book, Growth Mindset. I know you've read it.
Mm-hmm.
Allow yourself to get in there and learn and struggle.
Yeah.
Because it's that step into the panic zone when they say real learning is actually happening. It's not when you're sitting there just soaking up some words.
Totally agree. I want you to talk about the journey to the Pankey Institute in a second. If somebody's on, like, I hear what you guys are saying, but I need to find that excitement. I need to find a path. I want you to talk about that. But I think this is just a brilliant conversation, Kelley. Like, I love the topic. I love that you brought this, today to our conversation. But any last thoughts you have on this important subject?
I think my last thoughts are, you're not alone.
Yeah.
We are all walking through this world together. We're all connected in some way. And my hope is, I just hope that you hear, you're right where you need to be. And you're in the driver's seat to decide where you want to go. And if you need any support whatsoever, I'm always around. But talk to somebody. Don't try not to let the fear of unknowns and uncomfortable things consume you.
Yeah. Very well said. So talk about the journey. So I'll tell you my journey to Pankey Institute. Somebody made me go. I didn't know what it was. I'm like, where is it? That's, what is it? And they told me to go, and I had to go. I didn't have a choice. But if I'm sitting here listening to this podcast and I'm wondering, I got to find a place. I got to get on a path where you talk about the energy. Talk about the Pankey Institute. What does it do? How do I get started? How does that work?
Well, the Pankey Institute is in Key Biscayne, Florida. We have a series of curriculums that you begin, Essentials 1, 2, 3, and 4. I am a lead faculty member for the Lead 3, which is about anterior aesthetics and function. And the whole idea is kind of taking your learning through development with a patient from comprehensive care all the way through to large restorative cases that involve running a practice, figuring out what you want for yourself, surrounding yourself with your dreams, redefining your dreams, your vision, your mission, and being around a community of people that are wanting to make progress.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. We're going to put a link, if you're not taking notes today, don't worry. We're taking notes for you. Just flip up to the notes. You're going to see links to everything Kelley has shared, including a link to the Pankey Institute. You can just click right there. It'll take you right to the Institute. I'm going to encourage you to check it out. Not only, for the education, but you're going to meet some pretty cool people. It's going to excite the path ahead. And I think that's a big part of this, is just to really be excited while you're learning and be surrounded by good people who have your back, who are heavily invested in your growth. So it's good stuff. Kelley, thank you so much for being on. I have absolutely loved this. So I really appreciate you.
Appreciate you too. Thank you.
Yeah. So stick around when we say goodbye to everybody else. But thank you guys for listening to the Best Practices Show. Hey, if you enjoyed today, which I know you did, do me a favor. Just hit the share button. Share this with your friends. Keep sending us suggestions that you guys want to see in upcoming podcasts. I'm lining them up all right now. Also, anything that I can have Kelley back that you want to learn more about, I'm going to have her back and we can ask her the questions and get the answers straight from her. So until we see you guys next time, or you hear from us next time, keep watching or keep listening to the Best Practices Show. You guys enjoy your day.